You know, I love podcasting. I have since 2006, back when you had to use like a Dixie cup with string to make the thing work. And that's why I'm so excited that we recently moved Mysterious Goings On to Anchor FM to record our podcast. I gotta tell you, I don't regret it a bit. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. First of all, it's free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. And you can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast all in one place. Not going to lie to you, when I first heard about Anchor, I was a little dubious because I've been doing it the hard way for so long. But I got to tell you, it's very easy. Use a Stripe account. Get sponsors. You're not paying monthly hosting fees. The sound quality is great. The distribution is phenomenal. Friends, download the free Anchor app today if you want to start your own podcast, or go to anchor.fm to get started. Remember, you heard it here first on Mysterious Goings On.
Welcome to Mysterious Goings On. I am your host, J. Alexander Greenwood. Please call me Alex. It's just such a mouthful to say J. Alexander Greenwood. That's what she said. Hey, been a while, hasn't it? Maybe it hasn't been a while. If you've been binge listening, this is just another one in a series you've been listening to. I think we're right around episode 26 or so. Mysterious Goings On is a podcast by, for, and with independent writers, in particular, genre in particular of the particulars, and I dabble in the mystery, thriller, suspense, horror genres. I am the author of the John Pilot mystery series, 5 books and counting, and I will have an update on my latest book here in just a minute. If you are a longtime listener of the show, you will probably want to hear just a few updates on this, that, and the other. But before I get to those updates and some thoughts, I want to let you know we have a special guest, a returning champion to the show, and that is thriller, suspense, and horror author Jason McIntyre. Definitely one of the best in the genres aforementioned writing today. And we are excited to have Jason back on the show. Frequent guest, good friend of the show, good friend in person, or good friend in real life. And we're looking forward to talking to Jason a little bit about what he's up to and just having a little bit of a chit chat. Well, let's address the elephant in the room, shall we? We're talking in November 23rd, the day before the United States celebrates Thanksgiving, to be exact. And it has been roughly 3 weeks since the United States took a massive dump on the world and elected Donald Trump president. So, by the way, if you're a conservative Trump-supporting listener, I imagine you're turning this thing off right about now. And if you're not, well, I applaud you for hearing me out. There are several adjectives to describe what I think America has done. Disastrous being one, mistake being another, suicide being another. But, maybe I'm being a little too strong. No, I don't think I am. I think that anytime a democratic country elects a sociopathic son of a bitch with delusions of dictatorship, boldening racist elements, I think that we're in trouble as a world and as a country, and I'm very concerned about that. I will talk more about that in a future episode. I'm certainly opinionated, but this is different than, my candidate lost, somebody I don't like won. To me, this is an existential crisis for the United States and perhaps the world. We have elected a dangerously unprepared, unfocused, incurious, and frankly nasty man as president, and it concerns me a lot. So if you're still with me, I'm sure my guest Jason will be thrilled with this lead-in. We'll get into our conversation with Jason in just a moment, but I promise you this. I will do this for you. I will label an episode where I talk primarily about the political and other issues of the day coming up in a future podcast. In the spirit of Thanksgiving, I want to tone down my rhetoric for now and just promise you that I will give you some fire and brimstone about the Trump election in the days and weeks to come. I would like very much for the holiday season to be peaceful, but there's not a lot of indication with the news since the election that it's going to be. It's going to be a rough 4 years, folks. Again, this podcast is primarily, even though we do like to talk about issues of the day, it's primarily about writing. It's primarily about storytelling, and that's what we're going to talk about. So I'm going to give you a quick update on a couple of things, and then we're going to bring in Mr. McIntyre, or J-Mac as I call him. All right. First things first, I'm working on the 6th book in the John Pilot Mystery Series, and I will tell you the title if you haven't heard. It's Pilot's Rose, and I had promised this book for a Halloween 2016 release. And, you know, as John Lennon famously said, and I've quoted a million times, life's what happens to you while you're busy making other plans. Things got busy, things got hectic, got hairy with my day job, got hairy with some other stuff, and I think, kind of lost the thread on the book for a while there. It just, as Stephen King said, I let it go too long and it got a little stale. But the good news is, with some encouragement from people like Jason, by the way, and others, I have got back on that horse and am really starting to crank out the bones of this story and putting some meat on some of the bones, too. I also had said that I would try to get it out prior to Christmas, so it could be a good Christmas gift, but that's probably not going to happen either. But here's what I think is the silver lining on all that. Let's say I put it out in January. I mean, January is going to suck for a lot of reasons. One, you got your post-holiday letdown. Two, the weather's going to be absolutely gross, right? Generally, most of you, unless you're down in the southern hemisphere, and then it's summer and it's going to be great, right? But if you're in the northern hemisphere, it's going to suck. Three, Donald Trump is going to be inaugurated. So there's going to be a lot of stuff that's going to really be depressing and not interesting, and you're going to need an escape. So that's why I think January is a great time to release Pilot's Rose. That's my logic. It's also a massive rationalization for me not getting the book done. See what I did there? That's what I did. Okay, so about the podcast. I'm going to try to podcast at least twice a month. Love to get back to a weekly deal. It just really depends. I've got so much going on with my company during the day. I have a lot going on. Hiring new people. We're doing some new stuff. Very, very busy. I know a lot of people manage to work a day job and still write novels, but I suffer from a lack of bandwidth mentally. After a full day, usually a 10, 11, 12-hour day of dealing with my company, I just don't have a lot of gas left in the tank to write, but I'm going to work on that as well. So that's going on with the podcast and with the writing. We'll see what we can do on both of those counts to keep you in the loop and keep you entertained. Love to hear what you think. I'm on the Twitter at @A_Greenwood. Don't forget, we are on Facebook. Just search John Pilot, and that's Pilate Mysteries on Facebook. And like the page and comment. I'd love it if you do that. Other thing I'd like to tell you is pilotscross.com, PILATES cross.com is the mothership website where our blog is hosted. Also, autographed merchandise is for sale directly there. If you would like an autographed paperback copy of one of the first 4 books in the series. The 5th book is a book of short stories, an NC book only, so I can't obviously autograph that unless you mail me your Kindle, and then I'll be happy to use a Sharpie on that and mail it back to you. But otherwise, go to pilotscross.com. I actually sent 2 out this week, autographed books, people wanting from Christmas. So you could just get on there, and there's a space where if you buy the books and they're on sale, and you can tell me when you buy them how to make it out. Like, Alex, make it out to Jessica and say, F you, Jessica, this is a better book than anything James Patterson's written. Haha. It's really not, but I just thought I'd say that. But I could do that, or I could just autograph it straight up and send it to you that way. It's whatever you'd like. And again, that's Pilot's Cross, Pilot's Key, Pilot's Ghost, or Pilot's Blood. Any of those paperbacks can be yours, autographed and personalized, and sent to you. If you do it, let's see, today's the 23rd of November. If you get your orders in, I'd say no later than December 15th. Now, if you do it before December 15th, I could send it pretty cheap, media mail or first-class mail, pretty cheap. After the 15th, you're going to have to pay a little more in postage if you want to guarantee it gets to you before Christmas. And if you're not in the United States, basically, if you want it before Christmas, I'm going to need that order no later than probably around the 5th of December, maybe 6th, right around there. After that, there's just simply no guarantees. Sorry. Yeah, your mileage may vary, not for use with all Hot Wheels cars. Okay, sorry, Tennessee. Now, let me think here. Have I covered all these bases? I think I have. And I think what would be appropriate now is if I were to... wait, what's that? There's somebody at the door. Hang on, just let me answer.
It's cold out here. Let me in.
Jason McIntyre, get out of the cold.
Hey, happy Thanksgiving.
Hey, thanks. Hey, you've already had Thanksgiving, right?
Yes, sir. We had it about a month ago. Yeah, we have it. We celebrate earlier.
In your neck of the woods, yes. And let me ask you a question: do you pretty well partake of the same kind of meal as Americans, or do you have a variation of that's your own? Or
The traditional thing here is very similar. It's a turkey dinner with all the fixins and that kind of thing. So yeah, very similar.
Yes. Do you make your own?
Do I personally? You know what? I've never cooked a turkey.
Have you ever stuffed it?
Yes, I've helped with the stuffing. Yeah.
I didn't mean the turkey.
Okay. As you were going on a little bit, see how I changed the subject there? I was thinking about your challenges with the work and with family life and with also getting the writing time. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking the next book should probably be something along the lines of like Pilot's Coffee or Pilot's Red Bull, something like that.
Pilot's amphetamine. Pilot's amphetamine.
Yep, there you go. Pilot's meth.
Well, that's funny coming from you because you have just completed, can I say this? I'm going to say it. We'll cut it out if I can. You just completed the final book in your critically acclaimed Dovetail Cove series. Is that correct?
I finished the first draft of the last book. So there, as you know, as most indie writers and most writers in general would know, there's still a lot left to do. There's a lot of editing process and that kind of thing. But the first draft is in the can, yes.
And could I just say that, as a consumer of, and that sounds so awful, consumer, but as a loyal reader of the series, I'm working on the series. As I just recently finished Dread. Oh my God! Of the series, wow. Would it be fair to say that the Dovetail Cove series, Jason, was that? I mean, they're typically what, 70 to 100,000 words tops each, is right? Or am I wrong?
There's a mix. There's 10 books.
Yeah.
And about half of them are between 30 and 40,000 words,
okay,
which would be an 80 to 100 page printed book.
Right.
And then the other roughly half, 4 of them are, like you said, about 70, 80,000 words. And then the final book, the 10th one, which I finished recently, the first draft of, it's pushing 200,000. So all told, the series or the collection or whatever you want to call it, the word count on that is over 600,000. And and I never really set out to do that. And halfway through and 2/3 of the way through and here at the end, I'm realizing how crazy that was to undertake that. It was not my intention to be that insane. But I'm really happy with where it went. So I guess as I recuperate here, I'm feeling good about it.
Yeah, and that final book is called what again?
Dude, I'm not telling the title yet. You can't.
I was really trying to trip you up. I was like, hoping you'd be like, oh, it's it's Ed.
For listeners who don't know the gimmick, I don't even know where I came up with this, but there's a rhyming scheme of all the titles. They're usually 1 or 2 word titles for each of the 10 books, and they all rhyme. So the first one that I put out was called Shed, and then the second one was Bled, and then we have Dread, and we have Zed. And each time a new book comes out, it's kind of a secret, and we do a little contest and see if somebody can guess what the name of the next book is.
Yeah.
And people are convinced that the next one's going to be Fred or Ted. There's all kinds of hilarious guesses.
And I've read Dread and Zed. And Zed, by the way, is also excellent. And I'm trying to think which my next one will be. I guess Bled will be my next one. I think that's the one I'm going to... What?
Yeah. Okay. considering how down everybody seems to be, and you in particular with your opening monologue about the state of American politics, I don't know if you should read Bled right away. It's a bit of a downer.
Okay, what should I read? Shed?
Sure, yes.
All right, I'll read Shed. I'll do that. But not, awesome. Okay. But I'm better. I'm getting better, buddy. I'm getting better.
Really proud of Bled. It's just a little bit heavy for you right now, I think. I think you need to maybe just take a step back from a few heavier things at the moment.
I'm getting better, though. I'm telling you.
Yeah, I know. I'm teasing.
No, but I appreciate the heads up because I did finish. Okay, here's the deal. I went to Boston and I left the morning of the election. I pre-voted. I absentee voted. Everybody said, "Don't anybody give me any shit about my vote." I voted, but I was on the plane it was a straight flight to Boston, and I finished 3/4 of Dread, excuse me. I finished 3/4 of Dread on the flight up, and then I had to put it down because we got up getting off the plane, and then I had the conference, and I didn't read during the conference because I was busy working, drinking, occasionally sleeping, that kind of thing. But then I got back to it when I got on the plane after the election and results were known, and then I finished it, and don't get me wrong, folks, it's good, it's really good, but man, it's got a tough ending, and I mean, when I say a tough ending, I mean like, I don't mean it's bad. I don't mean it's like, oh, you don't want to read this ever. I don't mean it like that. I just mean like this is like masterful the way this book is done. And I had such strong, deep feelings for it that I think were magnified due to my sense of utter loss and hopelessness because of the election. So, yeah, I appreciate the heads up on that, Jason. That's important to me.
Well, thanks for saying so about the book. I think I said this to you. I was really glad you were sealed in an airplane as some of those results started coming in because they don't let anybody move around on the plane, and I was glad that you didn't have the opportunity to maybe put a boot through a window or something and end things for anybody because it was I know that it was dire for you and a lot of people,
and it's going to get worse, but that's not what we're talking about. But I appreciate that. So Jason, I wanted to. Before we go on, though, because we've probably piqued some interest here, where do we find these books? You should tell. Where are Dovetail Cove books to be found?
The standard places. Amazon is one of the most popular. Of course, the iTunes bookstore and Barnes & Noble Nook, that store as well, and Smashwords and any of the other online retail.
Kobo?
That's correct. Yeah, Kobo as well. I just neglected to mention. And they're all in ebook format. Zed, you could probably still find paperback copies.
I have one
of Zed, the first edition. I've just now put out second edition, so it's now available again after a period of not being available. So it's now available again
with a new cover.
Yes, with a new cover.
Now, what's up with that?
Well, I've been a graphic designer for close to 17 years, as well as my day work, which has been communications, public relations, and alongside content writing and that kind of thing. But I've always loved doing the graphic design, so I've been at it at a professional level for 17 years. And so when I started publishing my own books and my own short stories, it just seemed natural that I would do my own cover art and book jacket design and the interior layout and that kind of thing. And I got a lot of attention for it. Especially early on, I got a lot of attention for it. I don't think there was book jackets that looked quite like mine at that time, especially in the indie world. A lot of 5-6 years ago, a lot of indie books, the quality of the jacket design, I don't know if you agree, Alex, just wasn't great.
I agree.
5 or 6 years ago. I think indie authors are catching up and realizing that you have to kind of sell the whole package, not just, I mean, you can have a great book, you can have great writing, but if it doesn't look great on a shelf or on the web, readers are liable to pass it by.
That's probably what's wrong with my books.
No, I disagree. I think they're fantastic.
I'm just joking because my sales aren't great. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, that's another topic too. I mean, indie book sales have just really plummeted over the last 2.5 years. But I got some attention, and I got a lot of requests from other indie authors. Can you design me book jacket, and I simply just didn't have time. And this kind of harkens back to Pilot's caffeine and Pilot's Red Bull, and
Right.
and the idea of the balance between life, family, work, and this really, really passionate thing that we do, which is writing and storytelling. And I just didn't have time to help out as many. I've done a few. I've done a handful of really good friends' book jackets. But now I'm embarking on a period where I have a better opportunity to provide book jackets and design services for indie authors. So if there's anybody out there that wants to check out what I've done, have a look at my book covers. I'm also going to be sharing online lots of other jackets that you might not know I designed, because I wasn't really taking credit for it in the early days, just simply because I didn't want an influx of requests that I had to then turn down and say, no, I'm really sorry, I don't have time. But now I do have some time, and I have the inclination, and I'm putting out some book jackets for some author friends. And if anybody wants to look at that, I'm happy to discuss it.
I'll just say this: I've worked with 3. Okay, I have seven books and two short stories out there right now. And out of that, I did the covers for 3 of them, and they're 2 short stories and my nonfiction book, Kickstarter Success Secrets, and they're all pretty lousy. Now, I had professionals do the cover. My first 3 were done by a art professor here in Kansas City. He did a fine job. They're a little artsy fartsy and not real commercial, but they're cool and they're distinctive. Then at your urging, by the way, I went to Scarlett Ruger's for my 4th book, Pilot's Blood, and she did a fantastic job. Did a really nice job. Sales were pretty good. They weren't as great as I had hoped the cover would, lead to, but they were pretty good. But I think it's like you said, sales have been down the past couple of years for indies anyway. Then my book of short stories, that was totally going to be like, I just told myself this is going to be what I call down and dirty, and that's where, I had an editor, I paid an editor, but I was like, I'm not paying for a cover. I'll do this myself. This is it was more like a love letter to the fans who were really, really into my series, and to myself in a way, because I was just like, this is going to please me and nobody else. So I did a little cover, and it was not that great, but
I like Pilot 7 cover, by the way.
Well, thank you. And it was so simple. It's just basic. It's kind of
best.
Wow, thanks.
And I hate to interject, but I will just say, one of the great things about Pilot 7's cover is the simplicity of it, but it also alludes to the fact that it's a more literary set of stories. And I know that some people, that word literary might turn them off, but I mean it in the best possible way. And
I'm liking it.
The jacket actually really reflects that, in my opinion. It's got that nice linen-y feel to it, which kind of brings things to a new level, I thought, for Pilot.
Yeah, well, thank you. Wow, thank you.
You bet.
Yeah, well, but then Pilot's Rose is coming up, and I'll just embarrass Jason. I reached out to Jason, and I had actually asked you before, and that's why you politely said, you're a nice guy and you're a friend, but I'm too busy for you. And you didn't say it that way. You said I'm just really busy, and you were. I think,
is that maybe why I suggested Scarlett?
It's absolutely why. It wasn't personal. It was like you had your day job, you had a lot going on. And you're just like, I don't have time to do it justice. And please try Scarlett. She's good. And so I did. But then this time rolled around, and I got real lucky. And the cover's done, folks. I'm excited to tell you, and I'm so tempted to show it with this particular podcast as a cover reveal episode, but I think I'm going to wait, and I'll tell you why, because I don't want the cover reveal to be tainted too much by my political rantings and my being upset.
Uh-oh.
So what I'm going to do is we're going to save that for Facebook, and we'll do a cover reveal then. But I just want to say this: I commissioned Jason. He did some concepts for me, and I've shown it to a very tight circle of people, and their jaws dropped. In fact, I showed it to a friend who's a very dear friend of mine on my way out to Boston on the plane. He doesn't read my books. He's, don't get me wrong, he's a wonderful guy. He's just not into fiction at all, and he's very busy, and he sleeps like 3 hours a day, and so he just doesn't have time to read it, but he supports me very, very much in my work. And I just said, hey, you want to see something? And I I had my laptop open, and I, he's sitting all across the aisle on the plane, and I just move it over, and I watched his eyes get big, and he goes, "Wow!" And he said, "That just sucks you right in." I'm like, "Yeah," and here's the thing, it's simple in a lot of ways, but it's layered, and the color and the textures, and I mean, I don't want to put a lot of pressure on it, but I'm really counting on this cover to kind of help pull this book in for people. I think it's going to be that good of a cover.
That is so nice of you to say. I can't wait for people to see it, because honestly, when I worked at it, once I hit on the final version that I showed to you, and this hardly ever happens to me when I'm designing anything of importance, I stumbled across what I felt was a very, very strong cover really early. So after only a few hours of working at it, I had something that I wanted to show you, and I never want to show a client anything that I've designed or worked on until it's like really, really close.
Right.
It was really, really close after about, I think, 3.5 hours or something like that. And usually a book jacket, especially something that I'm really passionate about, like a book jacket, usually I'm on 12 or 13 or 14 iterations of a design. And I think I was on the second, maybe, version.
I know. And frankly, can I be honest with you for a second? Can I interrupt you? You were so quick to send one over. I was almost, before I opened it, you sent something to me, and I was like almost disappointed, because I thought, oh shit, he just kind of rattled something off, didn't he? I mean, honestly, I'm being candid, because you sent it within hours, right, or a day or so, or something.
Yeah, I did, and you know what? I even thought of that. And I waited 2 hours to send it.
You did.
I really did. Because I'm like, it doesn't make any sense that I would be this happy with something that I did. And I'm really, really hard on myself, both with my writing and with design stuff. I'm really, really critical. So I couldn't believe it either, to be honest. But I did. It's hilarious. I waited a couple hours before I sent it.
And we're such good friends. I was just like, I can't believe my buddy here would, just kind of blow me off and just, crank some shit out, And so then I opened it and I went, oh. And I think I had one lame note for you, and you tried it, but it was, and it's funny, by the way, I showed my buddy Mike on the plane. I showed him, I said, okay, now look at this version that I suggested. And he goes, no, the other one. That's the one. And I showed my wife, and she goes, no, she goes, why would you lard it up with something extra? You don't need that, Everybody said that. I was so disappointed for a bit there, because I was like, come on, somebody see it my way. See this. I'm not even going to say what the design element was, but Jason, you know exactly what it was. I
do, and honestly, I spent more time trying to work in that one
I know.
than I did on the whole design.
I made you earn your money.
And I was frustrated. I'm like, I don't really think this is the right way to go, but I need to try because he really wants it. And it didn't. It made it worse.
But to be fair, I mean, I was an easy client compared to a lot. Come on, some of these people.
Oh, you were. Here's the thing. I'll just take my turn interrupting, because that's what we do.
That's what we do. We're so excited to talk to each other. By the way, this is not like being rude. We just get excited talking to each other.
Exactly.
Okay.
No, I never take it as being rude at all. But the thing is, one of the reasons I think that I came so quickly to the final design is that you had a very clear idea of what you wanted. And in that regard, you were a dream client, because a lot of writers have a very nebulous idea. They know what their book is about, and they've written hopefully a good book, but they don't have a real clear idea of how to sell it with that one image, And I apologize, but I snapped my finger, because that's really what you want, is you want this one clear, clean, crisp image. And that's why we use the word simple. It needs to be simple, but it's really complicated to get to that simple thing. But you already had that done. You did the heavy lifting before I even started designing.
Well, that's the thing too, is I know what I want, and I know what the most dramatic scene in the book is. And I sent you the very rough draft of that scene just to give you a feel. And there's something, as an aside, I am watching. I don't know if you're an Amazon Prime member, but
I'm not.
Okay, well, Amazon creates their own TV shows and stuff now. And if you're on Amazon Prime, you can watch them as part of Prime, or you can, if you're not Prime, I guess you can rent them if you're not part of Prime.
Who has time to watch television, man?
Well, I really don't, but that's what I love about Prime. It's like when I do have a few spare moments and I need to veg out. I mean, to me, it's either watching the Kansas City Chiefs or it's occasionally pulling a show or two. Like the only regular show on TV I watch right now is The Walking Dead, and I'm about done with it. And that's the story for later.
We have to discuss that. Yeah,
maybe we can talk. Yeah, let's talk about it before we go. All right. But anyway, so there's this show. It's new on Amazon Prime with Billy Bob Thornton, who, dumb name, great actor. You may recall his turn as Lauren Malvo in the television show Fargo a couple of years ago. He was so good. There's a show called Goliath, and he plays this dissolute, down on his heels, former brilliant attorney who's alcoholic and he's like living in a shabby hotel. It's kind of a cliched setup, and if it was anybody else but him playing the character, it might not work, but it works. And it's created by David E. Kelley, who created a lot of great TV back in the 90s and early aughts. He did Ally McBeal and I think The Practice and what was the other one? Boston Legal, stuff like that. But this is not... Boston. And this is much darker, though. It's not like funny, haha. I mean, it's amusing. It's so good and rich. But anyway, this is what's funny. This is why I'm mentioning it, besides the fact that I think it's good writing and I'm enjoying it, which I find it so rare that I can watch something on television and enjoy it these days. But the whole center of the story involves what is on the cover of this book. The whole key, the whole crux, the whole enchilada is, and mind you, I just started watching the show 3 days ago, and I'm just like, oh, okay, I'll watch this. Bad Santa's in it, haha. And there it was, and I mean, Jason, seriously?
Mm-hmm.
I should screen grab it and just text it to you later, buddy, just so you can see. I'm gonna. So you can see what I'm talking about. But anyway, so if you're a fan of Goliath, then you got a good idea what's on the cover of my next book. Yeah.
I like that foreshadowing.
Yes.
Do you find that frustrating when you're watching or reading?
Yeah, yes.
watching a show, watching
yes.
a movie, or reading something, or you hear something, or even a news item.
Yeah.
And it's they didn't steal it from you, obviously, but it's just so coincidentally similar.
Yeah.
That you're just like, oh, come on. I didn't even have a chance to put mine out yet, or I just put mine out, and that's the same thing. What are the chances?
It's happened to me 2 or 3 times.
Sure.
And it's just the way it goes. But in a way, that's good because I think that's also an indication that you are psychically tuned into the grand river of content or whatever the hell you want to call it.
Yep. On the bleeding edge of what's happening. Yeah.
Yeah. Although, frankly, I have read a lot of your stuff, and I do not see many parallels. You are truly original with what you're doing.
Oh, thank you. There are still 5 more books in Dovetail Cove and 2 other unreleased books in my pipe. And I will say that at least a dozen things, like significant things, in those stories have either happened on the news in the time that since I drafted them, or have been on popular television shows, movies. And each time it happens, I hear what you're saying, and I agree with you. It's gratifying in one sense because you are tuned into this bigger thing, and that's clear. But it's also like, oh, really? Come on.
No, I totally get that. It's a double-edged deal. And real quick, besides Dovetail Co., of course, there's other books that you've written that are not part of that series. On the Gathering Storm comes to mind. And that was your first big hit. That was like one of the first.
That was the very first novel that I released.
But wasn't it also acclaimed by Kindle for some reason? Am I right, or am I thinking of a different work by you?
On the Gathering Storm was voted top 20 debut authors by Goodreads. Is that maybe what you're thinking?
I think that might be what I'm thinking. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Top 20
The Nightwalk
debut.
is a short novella.
Mm-hmm.
That's maybe what you're thinking of. It was a number 1 bestseller.
The Nightwalk Man, in case people didn't hear
on
that.
Amazon for Kindle, yeah.
You've had a little bit of acclaim there, my friend. And I guess, not to be outdone, I'd like to announce something real quickly on the show.
Please.
But I may be jumping the gun a little bit, but I don't care. I don't think they'll mind that much. You fans of the John Pilot series might know that Pilot's Cross, Pilot's Key, Pilot's Ghost, and Pilot's Blood have all been named either notable books, page turners, or top 100 notable books. Actually, it's top 100 notable books by Shelf Unbound Literary Magazine. And I mean, that's immensely gratifying to me because Shelf Unbound has received numerous awards as a magazine for being a quality literary magazine. And I'm just proud that out of literally thousands of submissions, those books made the cut. And I just received an email from the publisher of the magazine the other day that Pilot 7, my book of short stories, has been named a top 100 notable book. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. You may find it at Amazon.com or Smashwords. It's there or on all the other places. So, well deserved. Thank you, and I should encourage my friend here, Jason, to start entering Shelf Unbound competitions because you might actually not be a notable book. You might actually win one. Damn it! So get yourself entered into these things, man.
Well, I will take that under advisement. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, indie writers, if you're listening, of course you're listening, or that's a stupid thing to say. You are listening, or whatever. Indie writers, don't underestimate the value and the credibility that comes from winning or coming in, at least as an honorable mention, in a prestigious publication contest. I am not one to enter in every little contest that comes. I mean, one of my short stories won the Writing Room Award for Best Short Story, and then I won the Wattpad Shelf Unbound Best Short Story Award in 2010 or 2011 for Obsidian, my short story, which was a real boost for my career and getting me readers for my novels. And then having each of these novels in the series to at least be named, a runner-up, basically, a top 100 book. It's quite a thing to hang your hat on when you're trying to get into a bookstore or trying to get a library to carry your stuff or just trying to get readers to take a chance and read. If you look at Amazon, generally on every book you'll see, named a top whatever, won this award. If anybody thinks it's craven or silly, sorry, you don't know marketing. Readers want quality, and they want that third party affirmation that they are buying a book that's worth a damn. Wouldn't you agree, Jason?
Absolutely, and it's a good thing that you mentioned that because I think we as indie authors with the aforementioned day jobs and family lives and children and homes to upkeep and all of these other things that are pulling at our time, one of the first things to fall away is marketing, and a piece of marketing is these kinds of third-party affirmations because you're right. Readers want somebody else to tell them that something is good. It's an extension of word of mouth, but it has more power. It has more power than just a buddy telling you this is a good book. When you see that something has won an award, that is very, very key in enticing a reader who may not give you the time of day otherwise as a writer. So I think that should be a component to indie writers and their marketing. I really do.
It has to be. And getting reviews is another part of that too. I mean, I know we hammer this over and over, but if you like a writer's work, even if you don't love it, but if you like it enough if you would tell somebody on a bus, if you were reading the book, yeah, and they say, "How's that book?" and you thought, "Yeah, it's pretty good. You ought to read it." Why not take literally 2 minutes on Amazon or wherever you bought the book and go online and leave a starred review and just say 3 stars, 4 stars. I thought On the Gathering Storm was a hell of a debut novel. Really loved it. Can't wait to read more Jason McIntyre's work. Check it out yourself. You won't regret it. That takes 2 minutes to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think too, Alex, is that I think readers get confused. They don't have to love a book to give it a review, and the review helps regardless of whether it's a 5-star or something lower.
I've said this before, I'll say it again. I would take a 3-star review I'll take it. A 4-star. I would rather a thoughtful 3-star review came out than just a 5-star going, it was really good. Some people do that and they think, oh, I want to please the author because I know them. And I'm like, no, don't do that. And then I've had some people say, don't tell me how to review. If I want to give you 5 stars, I will. I'm like, okay, fine. But yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
No, and I just wanted to point out before I forget, because that's how my old brain works now, is you might not think that an indie author or a new author's book is a 5-star. Maybe it's not. But guess what? If that author doesn't get enough starred reviews somewhere, they're either going to throw in the towel or they're not going to have the opportunity to keep writing. And guess what? Every author, every single writer gets better and better and better. So if you want to work your way towards a J. Alexander Greenwood book, a Jason McIntyre book, or any other author's 5-star book, and you don't think they're there yet, guess what? Reviewing them is going to help them get there. Even if it's not the review itself, even if you don't give them, feedback and that kind of thing that helps them improve, just the fact of them getting enough reviews is going to keep them going.
It really will.
Absolutely. And they'll have a 5-star book out in 3 years or in 5 years, depending on their growth as a writer.
Which reminds me, if you're still listening, I've got a little thing that might tempt you to do this. I'm holding in my hot little hands a copy of Pilot's Ghost, my third novel. And, oh my gosh, on the back, there is a blurb. Here, I'll read the blurb. Quote, Greenwood offers a fresh take on the mystery thriller with his John Pilot series. His novels are populated with flawed and neurotic, yet instantly likable characters who find themselves thrown into maddeningly entertaining situations. Greenwood writes fun, accessible fiction that leaves readers asking for more. Jason McIntyre, author of On the Gathering Storm and Thalo Blue, wrote that. Hey!
Wow.
I am so proud. So, here's the deal.
Sounds like you like that book.
Well, here's the thing. If you're listening to this podcast and you go to Amazon.com and leave a starred review, preferably 3 or better, for any of my books, screen grab that, screenshot your review, and email me at team, T-E-A-M, at alexgpr.com. That's team at alexgpr.com. Just do a screenshot of your review, email it to me. The first person who does that, and I mean till the end of time, just first person who does that gets an autographed copy of Pilot's Ghost directly from me. I will send it anywhere in the world. Just send me your address. So what you'll need to do, screen grab it, subject line put my Amazon review, then attach your screen grab. Then I need your name and how you want the book personalized, or if you just want my autograph, or if you don't want an autograph at all, that's fine. But if you want it personalized, tell me what message, or if it's going to be a gift, whatever. Just tell me what to write, and then give me your address, and I will send it to you. So again, pretty easy. You want to win a free copy of the book? I'm asking you for a review. So screen grab that review, mail it to team at alexgpr.com, subject line, my Amazon review, name, address, and inscription.
Am I eligible to take part in this? Because I can do this. I can do this within the next 10 minutes. So beat me to it.
Well, I'll tell you what. Once the podcast launches, I guess you're eligible. I think you've already reviewed most of my books, but anyway, I hope you'll think about doing that. In fact, that's something we might try to do. If it works, we might start doing this every episode until I run out. I've got a supply of books here that I have an extra supply on hand. I usually do print on demand, but for the holidays, I always have some extras laying around. So for the next few shows, we might be doing this. But again, your chance to win Pilot's Ghost. By the way, a top 100 notable book by Shelf Unbound magazine. It's published by Caroline Street Press in 2012. It's got a really dark cover, kind of really moody, spooky. I think the writing in it's pretty muscular and mature for me. It gets better as it's my third book. As Jason said, I think I've improved with each book, and it's a book that actually was a Kickstarter too. The paperback version, we did 106% of our Kickstarter goal to raise funds to print the book, and so I'm very proud of it. It's a big success in a lot of ways, and I'd love to share it with you. So that's that. So there's your chance, and I'll put the information in the show notes as well, just to let you know, so you don't have to, if you're driving or something, you can just always look back later on what to do. Hey, you know what I'll tell you, Jason? You know, one thing you said that is true. Sales have been
one thing, hey?
Well, only one, yeah.
That's fair.
Yeah, right. Sales have been down, but guess what? I got my royalty statement from, I have 2 books on Audible.com.
Okay.
I have Pilot's Ghost, Pilot's Cross, my first book, read by the wonderful John Edmondson. He narrated it. And I have also Kickstarter Success Secrets, which is the story of how I crowdfunded Pilot's Ghost, and it's read by Rye Taylor, and it's a short audiobook. But anyway, I got the largest royalty check I've ever had from Audible this past month. So,
Nice.
Through ACX, if you can read them, or you have a good reader and a quality recording, you can get your books out there on Audible. And I advise you indie authors to check out ACX, which is part of Amazon, and it's all tied together. And if you want to offer audio versions, you have to have a quality recording. There are some rules on how you do it. Jason and I both like to read our own work. I know that. John did a great job on my first book, although I am kind of a ham, so I'm kind of, if you've listened to the show, I like to read my own work. So I'm kind of thinking, it's always like, when I have time, of doing my own and adding the rest of the series to it. But I don't know, Jason, have you thought about doing the audiobook stuff?
I did. I did an audiobook of On the Gathering Storm with an excellent and renowned reader named Jeffrey Kafer. And so that's available on audible.com and all of the other places that audiobooks are available. And it was actually quite a big success early on. And I don't know if this is the case, but I feel like I was one of the first indie authors, at least in my circle.
Oh, I know you would be, yeah.
To do an audiobook. And
yeah.
it was at quite the high level at that time. So this is about 6 years ago. And I was really pleased with it, and it did really well for about 18 months. And then, of course, it kind of sinks off the new charts or whatever, the new listings.
Right.
I did my own reading of The Nightwalk Men, and so that's available for free at www.thefarthestreaches.com. You can find that there. And that was my own reading, and also I should mention that I was a bit of a ham as well when I did it, but it was a lot of fun. I would do it again in a heartbeat, but I also like having the interpretation of another reader doing the book. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm that way too. I think I would very much like to read Pilot's Key. I've read sections of it for this podcast. I'd like to read that whole book myself. I just have a lot of affection for that book. But I think it would be great to have someone else. I'd like a woman actually to read mine. I have somebody in mind. She's really talented, a voiceover artist. Just got to see if she's, can act the parts as well as read, because you got to be able to act it a little bit too, in my opinion, not just read it.
Yeah, I think so. There's a fine line though between doing a stage production on the audiobook and doing just a really good, clear reading with the characters differentiated. I like the latter a bit better personally, but.
Well, when I say acting, I just mean I want some inflection. I want you got to be able to tell, like you said, differentiate and convey that proper sense of suspense and drama, etc. There's a really good reading of a book by Whitley Strieber called Majestic that Chris Sarandon, who you may remember from Fright Night as the Vampire, he read it and he did a really nice job. That's one that sticks out in my mind, and I love all the Gore Vidal American series that finishes with, I'm looking at it right now, as a matter of fact, The Golden Age is the last novel, and Catherine Walker reads it. She does a fantastic job, and at the very end, Gore Vidal reads the last bit of it, and it's the late, great Gore Vidal, my favorite author of all time. And anyway, so indie authors, check out ACX. It's Audible's and Amazon's arm for recording, and anybody can do it. The barrier for entry is rather low. You just have to have a quality recording. Don't be slapping on any music you don't own. That's one thing. Make sure you read up on all that stuff and check it out.
The technology it's readily available. The technology to do a good quality audio recording is within reach for almost everybody, I think, now. If you have a computer that you're able to type out your manuscript on, you probably have or can get software on that computer that can help you do a recording of your work that would suit ACX's rules and regs.
Right. And, 3 years ago, even I was talking to a recording studio about it. And, it was going to be $600, $700, $800 to do it, but it would have been engineered to perfection. It would have been perfect. Yeah. But I never would have made that money back. And it would take years to make that money back. And I just didn't do it. Then I nearly had a client who has a great studio. Of course, he's one of those people that you have these great meetings with, and then they go dark on you. They just ghost you. You just like, what? I don't know what I did wrong, but I don't hear from him ever again. He was going to trade out some PR work for recording, but I think he was kind of religious, and I think he looked into the books, and I think that's my supposition. Instead, he went, "Oh," and he decided. Oh. It's funny because Rye Taylor, who read my Kickstarter book, Kickstarter Success Secrets, it was so funny. I auditioned him and hired him through ACX, and then it's so funny. After he accepted the job, he says, just by the way, if there's any language or anything that I think is in opposition to my religious views, I can't do this. And I'm like, dude, maybe you ought to say that before, people, you audition. You should put that maybe in your bio. But it was fine because it was a nonfiction book and there's no language. But sorry, Rye, if I don't mean to make fun of you, but you might want to change that, buddy. Okay, we're running, gosh. Uh-oh, there's the cops. Can you hear them?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they're coming for us.
They're coming for you, I think.
They heard, Benito Trump heard what I said earlier, and so they're going to haul me away, buddy. Before I go to Gitmo, though, The Walking Dead, have you been keeping up with that?
I'm almost up to date. I think I'm maybe behind one or two episodes, but I'm definitely on this season.
Okay, well, let me just real quick do the obnoxious spoiler alert thing. I'm not. Okay, that's so obnoxious. If you've not watched this latest series, which is this season 7, I think, or
season 7, I think I'm on episode 2 of season 7. I think are they on 3 or 4?
Yeah. If you've not watched that yet, then you need to turn off the podcast until like about the last 2 minutes or so, and then go back there. But if you turn it off now because you haven't seen it, great. Just remember the contest and check the show notes, and remember to visit me on the web and all the usual places and all that. Check the show notes. Okay, The Walking Dead. Your take on the direction the show has gone, please.
Oh, sorry, I tuned out. I didn't want any spoilers. I'm kidding. I think even as a guy, as a writer who tells sometimes bleak stories, I think there's a lot of hope in what I write. So my feeling with this Negan storyline is I'm hopeful that they inject some bits of hope. And I think they tried to do that with the episode 2, which immediately followed the big, gigantic season premiere. But I'm not feeling that hope. I'm not feeling like there is. It feels too bleak, which to me it must be quite bleak because I've written some bleak stuff.
You wrote Dread, for God's sake.
I did, and I wrote Bled, which you should check out, but maybe not this year. And so for me to say that a fictional universe has gone too bleak, I would say that's pretty serious. What about you? What do you think?
Well, I'll just relate this to you real quick. And folks, if you're hearing a little bit of a noise under me, it's cold in my office. I just turned on the fan. I'm sorry. It's not a fancy heater. I had to. All right. I'll try not to, if it's really distracting, I'm sorry. That's funny because as the author of Pilot's Ghost, which is a very dark book, I got a lot of criticism. Well, as much criticism as I get. I got criticism for Pilot's Ghost because it's dark. And it doesn't end necessarily on a everything's happy kind of note. I'm not seeing the hope there. I mean, I found myself after I got over the gore fest of the season opener, which I knew something like that was coming. I didn't know how far they'd take it, and I did guess right on who. I knew it was going to be Abraham. I was surprised. I thought, Stephen Yeun's such a popular actor, and the character's so popular, they're going to save Glenn. So I was shocked when Glenn got his eye popped out. That was horrible.
Yeah, even aside from the bleak nature of it, just the graphic nature of it, I was surprised at that they went that far.
Disgusting,
to be honest. Yeah.
Well, and and like the other night I was watching it, and it's not getting much brighter. You're right. And I told my wife, I said, this is just too much for me now. And she's like, what do you mean? I said, with everything that's going on with this country and this phenomenon and the ugliness that's out there, and I'm seeing Walking Dead as being probably an unintentional parallel to what's going on, and I mean, I would like to believe that an apocalypse would be more like Stephen King's The Stand, where the good win over evil. Mm-hmm. But I'm more likely to believe than ever that actually, in whatever apocalypse means, it's the other way around. And I'm not getting much hope out of this. I think Jeffrey Dean Morgan is a great actor. I think he's incredibly charismatic. Andrew Lincoln as well.
And amazing.
Yeah. And when you think of all the British actors that are on this show who master some pretty decent American accents, it's great. But the bleak. I mean, and then I find myself too, and I'm watching, and I'm on time with it. You're behind by about one episode, but I find myself going, I just hope there is a freaking unit of the United States Army or Marines that is okay, and they are going to just show up and clean house, which is totally stupid and it won't work. It's not part of the story. But I find myself hoping against hope that there's some white knight that will come in and save Rick and the gang and take Negan and kick him in the freaking balls and just with that bat of his, but mm-hmm. so I know. But then as a storyteller, I'm fully aware of a couple things. One, if they end up killing off or completely subsuming Rick and his people into this evil group, well, then there is no reason to continue watching. Or two, I think that they are going to pull us as an audience all the way to the edge as far as they can go. They're going to kill more people. They're going to hurt everybody. They're going to humiliate people like they continue to do. Negan's going to get more and more powerful, and his people are going to get worse and worse, and you're just going to hate them so very much that finally, when the day comes, when somebody finally gets over on these bastards, it's going to be this climax of all climaxes emotionally, and it'll be a great payoff. I think that's what they're shooting for. Whether the audience has the stamina or the patience to stick with it is another question.
I completely agree. I think that they've probably gone as far as they need to, and I think going further. Now, all this being said, they've produced or are in the process of producing this season, so it doesn't really matter what the audience thinks at this point.
Right.
Season 7 is pretty well in the can. I'm sure they're doing effects and they're doing editing and they're doing sound and all those things, but they've shot it, they've written it, they've shot it. So for me to sit here and say they've gone too far to the dark side and they could do that big payoff now that you mentioned, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter what I think. Mm-hmm. It's going to go the way that it's going to go. But I believe they've actually gone as far as they need to. And I think going further is one of the main reasons I haven't really been chomping at the bit to keep watching. Because I feel like they've gone too far over to the dark side, to be honest.
I'm good for a few more episodes. I'm an episode ahead of you, and I'm going to tell you not to give it away, but it continues to get worse. I'm going to give it a little while longer, but as I get older, especially in just like you, when the limits of my time are so great. It's funny because like shows like I watched The Blacklist for the first couple of seasons because I love James Spader, but then it just became repetitive and stupid, and I was just like, no. And my wife's just like, "You're really done with it?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm done." I just stopped watching it, and that's not like me. Usually when I like something, but anything that's repetitive, anything that's so obviously trying to manipulate me using a variety of tools, I think that's a hazard writers have anyway, as we generally can see around corners when it comes to a lot of it, especially with television, because even good television, the writing ain't always that great. And like my wife used to hate watching TV with me all the time back when we really watched a lot more TV, like back when our kid was a lot younger, and you're kind of stuck watching a lot of TV when your kids are really young because there's so much going on where you just have to kind of watch them and you can't really do a lot. And I would just sit there and go, well, this is going to happen next, and this is going to happen next. And I was right like 8 times out of 10, and she's just like, it is no fun watching TV with you, And so.
And that's what I think about the first episode of The Walking Dead this season was the manipulation bothered me.
Yeah.
That just the way they told that story with the time jumping.
Yeah.
And the manipulation of you. of the lead up to that episode, I thought was kind of cheap. And I didn't
Yeah.
think it relied on good writing, and that bothered me.
Well, yeah, it's like my other fallback, and my good friend Michael Zuffa, who has been on the show to talk about Star Trek. It's like Star Trek into Star Trek Into Darkness. It's completely cheap. They ripped off all these emotional things that are supposed to get Trekkers excited and happy to see you, and they did that. They relied on tropes, and they relied on shop-worn cliches, and they relied on stuff that had worked before in a different context, and threw it all together and thought this will work, and what they ended up doing was insulting everybody's intelligence and pissing off the true fans and making a lackluster movie at best. They somewhat redeemed themselves with the third movie, Beyond, but I don't want to go off on a track, but I think that is where Walking Dead's going. And by the way, if you've not read up, Google this. Frank Darabont, who directed The Shawshank Redemption, and I think Stephen King's The Mist and some other stuff, and he's just a brilliant director and a great writer himself. He's the one who converted. He was the showrunner on Walking Dead. He's the one who made The Walking Dead a TV show, and you should go read the lawsuit information. It's all online. They fired. AMC basically pushed him out, and for really crappy reasons. And a lot of the cast absolutely, were ready to walk, and all this stuff happened. And it's pretty interesting. You can kind of see how TV is made, because they talk about how the AMC suits would fly down to Georgia, where all the actors are like nearly dying from 110-degree heat. The suits would go stand around in the air-conditioned tent for 30 minutes and then act as if they'd looked at things and left. And they basically pushed Darabont out. So it's really interesting to see how the sausage is made. I think some people don't like that because it takes away from the show when they know that kind of thing. But as a writer and as a creator, I saw Darabont on El Rey Network with director Robert Rodriguez talking about his career, and they touched a little bit on The Walking Dead, but they couldn't talk much because clearly there's a lawsuit going on. And I thought, ooh, there's some meat in there I want to get to. It's in the marrow of that bone. And so I went and Googled it up, and there's some interesting stuff. Were you familiar with that, Jason?
A bit. Can you imagine, just as a tangent, can you imagine Frank Darabont if he had the budget on The Walking Dead that they now have, like Scott Gimple and those guys that are doing it now? If Frank Darabont wouldn't have been tossed, and he now had the budget and the popularity with the Frank Darabont brand of story focus.
Oh yeah.
As if he would have been allowed to continue with the kind of dollars they have now, I can only imagine how amazing the show would be. But
Jason, you know what this gets down to though? One reason Darabont got crossways with him, they were a runaway hit the first season, right? Runaway,
yeah.
Biggest hit AMC ever had.
Such a good
right, yeah. And AMC went in and said, runaway hit, thanks, great. We're going to cut your per show budget by a quarter, and also the 30% tax bonus we get from the state of Georgia. We're just going to pocket that. So you're going to have to do more with less, even though you're a number one runaway hit.
Yeah, and I know that. And was it season 2 with the farm, the infamous Herschel farm?
Yeah.
I thought there was a lot of good stuff there.
Yeah.
And the audience just kind of fell off because it moved slower.
Right.
And they didn't have all the zombie blood and guts because they couldn't afford it. But I thought that Darabont and his team of writers did really good work with those cuts.
Yeah. I think
it's a testament to their storytelling ability that they could salvage after all of those cuts.
I couldn't agree more. I have joked a million times, if somebody wanted to buy the John Pilot mystery series, they'd get it really cheap. And if they wanted to make a show out of it and wanted to be on board, I've joked and said, shit, I don't care if they wanted John to shave his legs, wear high heels, and, sniff coke every other minute. I mean, I'll do it. I don't care, because I would love to make a living off of my creation. But that's really not true. I mean, I don't know.
Could they put Khan in it?
And they could put Khan in it.
They could.
That would
could they have Pilot scream, Khan!
Oh my God, instead of the villain Derek Kral, we'll just make him Khan.
There you go.
That's brilliant, by the way.
That's not pandering to the audience at all.
At all. But that's funny because, of course, here's Stephen King, who's worth $500 million. People have said to him many times, "Don't you hate remember Under the Dome, which I called Under the Dome? I thought a terrible TV adaptation of his book Under the Dome, just awful, cheap writing. Anyway, they ask him, because he was, I think, a producer on it anyway, and they ask him, how can you stand what they're doing to your work? And he just laughed and goes, this doesn't change my work. My book doesn't change because of what they do on TV. He's like, man, cash the check.
See, and I would beg to differ with you on only the first season of Under the Dome. I thought the first season was good. It became a runaway hit, and they turned what should have been a miniseries with a closed ending into an ongoing series, and they completely spat in the face of everything they had written in that first season in the final episode. And it was like, are you kidding me? So the almighty dollar comes knocking, and you just completely shit all over the integrity of your story. And they did. Yeah. And they would probably say, yeah, we did.
Oh, yeah, I'm with you. That's TV. But here we are complaining. But, of course, you and I would, I dare say, line up. If Canadian TV called you or American TV called you or vice versa for me, both of us, anyway, I don't care what TV.
We would have those meetings, for sure we would. But we would probably, I would bet a lot of money that we would probably walk out of those meetings frustrated. We'd probably we'd continue down that path and see where it went, but I bet you we would both be appalled at suggestions and changes and what they wanted to do to your creation.
You're right. I think you're right, but I would definitely still cash the check.
We want to give John Pilot a sidekick. We want him to be a small Asian boy named Short Round. He's going to have some one-liners. Mr. Pilot.
And we were thinking, Mr. McIntyre, just think about it, all right? We were wondering if we could call it Dovetail Cave. Now, stay with me here. Stay with me. Everything will take place in this cave, all right? And there'll be doves, but they're going to be in the background. Go with it. Can you go with that? And by the way, we see that Martha Plimpton would be a really good lead for this. Yeah, I can see the whole thing. It would just really, but I think
that's gold.
That experience alone, though, just to write about that would be fun. Just what happened, what happened to my work when CBS bought it, or something like that.
Yeah.
And speaking of Star Trek, real quick before we go, because we've already blazed through an hour here, is like the Star Trek Discovery, the new one. They keep pushing that show back. They haven't got a cast. They haven't got anything done. The showrunners quit. All this stuff. You can just see how when people who here's the thing: when people who are not creative, do not create these worlds, get involved. Now, I understand you got to have a budget, and you got to have people who will hold your feet to the fire to stick to a budget. Fair enough, but there are so many. Kolchak's a Night Stalker back in the 70s. When you see so many of these really great ideas, they get absolutely screwed because the suits get involved. It makes it so difficult to maintain any kind of quality or integrity whatsoever in certain situations. That's why the whole concept of cable TV getting into producing shows, because they generally, the idea, at least when it started, if you think about it, was the suits stay out of it. But AMC, no. If you read up on that, AMC got involved. And one of the comments made, I'm paraphrasing, was that they were small-time executives who didn't really understand what they had, and they blew it in a lot of ways. So, Jason, final thoughts before we wrap this Thanksgiving bonanza, this incredible buffet of turkey. Anything else before we wrap it up?
I seriously think you should consider the Pilot's caffeinated versions for the future, just to keep, because I know there's a rabid fan base of Pilot fans that need Pilot's Rose and the next book and the book after that. And I know that indie writers, they often have a mixed bag of things going on. They have full plates, they have families, they have lives, they have jobs, they have other things. I think that a daily or a weekly word count, I think I've gotten some flack from other writers about this idea of sitting down to business every morning or every afternoon or every evening and hammering out words, whether they be good, bad, or indifferent. I've gotten flack for that because some writers think, well, it doesn't matter how many words you write, it's about quality. But I think having a regiment, I think is going to net the indie writer out there who's listening to this, who's maybe on the fence about publishing work or finishing their first book, I think getting some sort of regimen is going to help them. And I'm not saying this to be high and mighty or anything, that I'm, any great superstar or anything like that.
You've only written 15 books, so what do you know?
I've found that having a regimen of some kind helps me get to that place where I have a finished piece of work. Whether you love it, whether you hate it, whether you don't care about it, for my self-satisfaction of finishing and completing and putting out work that I feel is good and shareable, I think that's my tip for anybody listening today is, whatever that measure is for you, measure it somehow. Measure your output somehow, and then you can go back and fix it in post-production. That's what they do for television and movies.
We fix it in post. No, you're 100% right. Stephen King advocates this. He says, 1,000 words, fine. You can write every day except Christmas. That's what he tells people. Sure. My grandpa, who I've talked about many times, Robert E. Trevathan, 30-plus books he got published and by big publishers for over a 50-year career. Every morning, 4:30 a.m., he got up, set a kitchen timer for an hour. He didn't write a word count. He wrote for an hour. When that bell dinged, he got up, went to the racquetball court, then he showered, then he got dressed, then he went to his job, came home that night, read what he wrote that morning, made a few line edits. Next morning, got up, started all over again. Never missed a day.
See, and that's exactly what I mean. It doesn't have to be 2,000 words. I think Stephen King says 10 pages, which is about 2,000 words. Mm-hmm. I mean, he's Stephen King. He worked that up over 30 or 40. Is it 40 years of his career?
He's been writing for 50 years.
Absolutely. And your grandpa, he had his hour. Whatever your measure is, I don't even care if it's 15 minutes. I think when you're drafting something, I think it's the best piece of advice that I've ever followed.
Right.
Is to that daily or even every couple of days thing to keep it fresh and keep it going. Keep that locomotive going.
Jason, you've inspired me. Now I'll tell you real quick. This is the problem with you and me. We keep going. Yeah. But you know this about me, that I work out 6 days a week. And yep. I literally put it on my calendar. It's an appointment for myself. And the results are tremendous for me in a lot of ways. What I need to do now is start booking minimum 5 days a week, maybe 6. I can't say 7, but maybe 6 days a week. I need to book an hour for writing, just like my grandpa did, and just make it happen.
Yep.
So 1 hour a day, basically. Okay, so 6 days a week. I get 1 day to do just nothing, but 6 days a week I have to work out for an hour and I have to write for an hour. So there's 2 hours of my day that are gone into things that are investments that are important. So I like that, and that is going to be, here we go with the New Year's resolutions. But that is what I'm going to do. My goal, I will be honest, the Pilot's Rose is going to be fits and spurts, just fitting it in as I can. But I'm I've got some good advice from a friend who says that maybe after Pilot's Rose I take a break from Pilot and do some other stuff, and he's right. So we're going to think about that. Jason McIntyre, where do we find you? If we want to buy your work and read your thoughts and et cetera, et cetera.
Well, Google is always your friend. I mean, here's the thing. We could throw out a million website URLs and addresses and that kind of thing. But if you Google Jason McIntyre, you can find my books. If you don't want to do that, you can go to www.thefarthestreaches.com and you can get links to every place on the planet that has a book or has had me for an interview or a podcast, or even had my spinach dip recipe. That's basically, I call it the mothership, but that's where everything kind of starts from if somebody wants to go there.
And my mothership is pilotscross.com. I'm on Twitter at @_Greenwood. You can track me down there. Don't forget, if you want to enter to win a autographed copy of Pilot's Ghost, my third novel, my critically acclaimed third novel, all you got to do is write a starred review on Amazon, screenshot it, attach it to an email, subject line, my Amazon review, and send it to team@alexgpr.com. That's team, just like TEAM, @alexgpr.com. First person to do that, don't forget to include your name and address and how you want it personalized, will get a copy of this book.
And do it fast, people, because you're competing with me.
Yeah, and Jason's already got a head start, but he's promised to wait until this show actually comes out before he does it. And the other thing, too, is...
no such promise.
You actually, he didn't. Yeah, but I will say this: if you send me a 1-star review, you ain't getting the book. I'm just telling you that right now. If you think that's funny and you want to play a joke and say, here's a 1-star review. Sorry, you're not getting a book for a 1-star review. I don't see any reason to reward you for that because I haven't written any 1-star books that I've published. So there you go. All right. This has been your Thanksgiving buffet. As I said, we are so thrilled. Sorry if I got a little heavy at the beginning about the whole national election thing, but my views are heartfelt, and I'm sorry, not sorry that I said it. I think history will not be kind to a lot of people, particularly those who remain silent about this. More about that on another episode. So until then, on behalf of Jason McIntyre, my dear friend, I'm J. Alexander Greenwood, and I just implore you this holiday season to take care of everybody you love, be kind to strangers, try to banish bad thoughts, and of course, above all other things, keep reading.
It's a great time to get a great deal on a new car when you get approved for an auto loan from PenFed. Our Powered by True car rates are as low as 1.39% APR on new vehicles. Finance for a longer term to lower your monthly bill. Plus, take up to 60 days to schedule your first payment. Join PenFed and together we'll keep you moving forward. Anyone can apply. Visit penfed.org/auto or call 1-800-247-5626. To receive any advertised product, you must become a member of PenFed, insured by NCUA. From regular expenses to occasional splurges, there's a lot to buy. Why not get cash back every time you spend? With the PenFed Power Cash Rewards Card, you get cash back on every purchase. That's everywhere, every time you use it. You can even earn a $100 statement credit when you spend $1,500 in the first 90 days. Visit penfed.org/powercash to apply. To receive any advertised product, you must become a member of PenFed, insured by NCUA.